Welcome to episode 4 of Square Table Conversations, where we talk about topics that matter. And today we are talking about superstitions and whether we should believe in them in this day and age or not.
So I believe that superstitions. Basically, what are superstitions? There's something that it's a belief that we hold today. It's based, which currently don't have any logical reason or something like that. But we should understand that they were created when they were created very long back. There was some reason behind it, but over the years it was not passed on. The reason was not passed on, but only the superstition was passed on. So I think they have they had a significance and still do if we try to understand the meaning behind it.
Yeah. So I agree with whatever you said. So maybe the reason was not passed on and the practice was, and mainly I guess whoever made these superstitions maybe had a very good intention in mind. But what happened in the middle somewhere was that uh, it got somehow the purpose and the practice got disconnected, and then because of all the environmental changes or social changes, all of those things, I think the purpose got disconnected from the practice that was being followed. So that's why uh, they turned out to become blind beliefs rather than practices that had some meaning. So that's what I think.
So what do you guys think? Do you stand that it should still be followed, or
It should be whatever are relevant now should be followed.
yeah, but don't you think the ones that aren't relevant are still being followed because, like you said, the purpose wasn't explained, and I think it was more so because every superstition that we've heard of has a story behind it, right? And the story it was meant to be said like a story, and people forget the story and they just look at the, I don't know, they forget the moral of the story and they just look at what was the intent behind, not the intent but just the, let's say
They
the
forget the
yeah.
story, they remember the moral.
Yeah, that's what it is. So I don't know. So do you still, because it's still being practiced, some things that don't make sense are still being practiced, and because we weren't there in that generation, because our ancestors have told that this has to be followed, there are some very rigid families that still follow it without thinking if it is logical or how it can even, because I've seen cases of let's say all of these, not just superstitions, even these say certain rituals that we follow, they might have also gone to an extent of traumatizing a person, right? But still it's being followed because that's what our ancestors said. So I think the relevance is more important than the ritual. Yeah, that's my call.
Yeah, so I agree with that. So we should only follow what is relevant for today's world. So, for example, there's this belief that you shouldn't cut your nails after sunset. So the reason behind it was, in those days there wasn't proper lighting and
No light bulb, was it?
yeah,
Electricity.
exactly. There was no electricity, so
Post
it was
that,
just the lamp that they put in the house, and that was not enough to illuminate the house completely. So, and if you cut your nails, it would fall down and it would be sharp. Somebody would prick their leg or something, and that was the whole reasoning behind it. But in today's world, that's obviously not relevant. Everybody has LED lights in their house, everybody has electricity, so I don't think that's very relevant. And even if you take the example of women on their periods, where they weren't allowed to enter the kitchen, or they were just completely asked to stay separate for 3 days. The reasoning behind it is, yes, she would get complete rest for that period when she would maybe be mentally or physically weak, and she would need that break. So in those days it did make sense. But today, if you see, there's no reason to ask someone to stay separate. It's become so rigid in some families where they don't even know the actual reason behind it, and someone is, it's almost like that person is untouchable for the 3 or 4 days that they have to stay apart. So I don't really think that makes sense, and maybe the whole reasoning behind, okay, a woman can't enter the temple, that might still have some because of the energies and everything behind it, that might still make sense. But treating someone like an untouchable and saying they can't touch this, they can't touch that, or it has to be washed if they touch it, that's kind of taking it too extreme. So we should take in whatever is relevant for today's world and follow those rather than blindly following things just because our ancestors were doing that.
It's the energy
Flow
flows
of
from
energy.
top to bottom.
Okay.
You're on your
It's
period.
for the woman that you're saying.
Yeah, for
it's
the
for
woman.
the- huh.
Yeah, the
Huh.
direction of the energy is from the top to bottom when she's on her period.
Hmm.
But whenever you go to a temple, your energy flows towards your brain. It's in the upward direction.
Towards the
Okay.
Top.
the
Okay.
top chakras. Yeah.
So when you actually go to a temple when you're on your periods, that energy cycle will get disturbed.
Okay.
That is the reason why they tell you not to go to temples when you're menstruating.
Okay.
Yeah, and not just that, it was also like whoever got like hurt or cuts or something, they'd ask them also not to go to the temple for the same reason. Like blood is considered, like any blood, even if you get a cut or something, that's also considered unhygienic.
And
So like infections and all. So for that reason is also, that was also one of the reasons.
another thing is also that I don't know the credibility of this, but if you usually actually see temples, like these sacred temples, they're amidst a forest or like a top of a hill and something like that.
They had to climb the whole place.
They have to
trek the whole
climb,
thing.
and then be so many wild animals, and
Blood,
blood,
yeah,
it
right.
attracts. So that is the reason they should be like, just take. Some people just take it to an extreme level.
Yeah.
That is
But
something
it's
I'm
not
not
like
going
Yeah,
to
But
say.
people take it to an extreme
That's
level,
what
it's
we're
not
arguing
even
against. We're saying
Yeah.
like
Relevant.
untouchability is extreme. So that's what we're telling. Don't take it to the extreme level of it.
Well, so the same thing goes to this superstition as well, where they tell you don't comb your hair at night. All these maybe evil entities will get attracted. So that was for this purpose, that if you comb your hair and if some of your hair falls into your food or something, that if you consume that food you'll get stomachache.
that
So that was
also,
the purpose.
and you can't really see it, and they also say hair they take it from black magic and everything.
Black magic, yeah.
That's also.
Black magic was prevalent back then, so
Mm.
that was also one of the reasons.
Okay.
But now we have light and everything, so we can comb our hair and cut our nails at night.
So
There's
again,
nothing wrong with
the whole thing
wrong with that.
comes down to what is relevant and what
You have to
isn't.
practice
Yes.
that.
Okay. And I think it's more like all these things that are ingrained into our heads or our brains is out of fear, and fear because it's like the best teacher. People just happen to make up stories that sound very wild right now, but back then people used to believe it because they don't want to get into trouble as
And
such.
actually, the thing is, if you just see a cat pass by, it just sits in your head. Somehow sits in your head. Like it's not. You don't know if it's true or not, but somehow you will just feel, and that might actually happen. And even when they ask you not to ask where you're going, and if someone asks you that, whatever task that you're going for will not
Will not
be
happen.
successful.
Yeah, all of this is because all of this has already been put into our heads.
Yeah.
So we just make sure, or like the Murphy's law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
It's the Murphy's law.
Yeah.
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 You just do things that get you to it, even though you don't want that to happen.
Like for example, yesterday while I was leaving from my house, I saw one cat pass by before I left. But then nothing happened. Everything happened. Everything went on well. Whatever I had planned is going well till now. So it is a superstition. It turns out to be a superstition. So maybe if
Has
we
a
can
black
try.
cat crossed. And have you tried this?
Yeah. So we can, for all these small things, maybe we can just try and do that thing and see if it happens.
Maybe the small things we can try to bring in like search for a reason for it. But I feel like some of these big things, like they conduct all these rituals and all, those are a pretty little bit extreme.
Extreme, yes.
Elaborate, yeah.
I think what our generation can now do is, if you're training your next generation or younger people, what you can try and do is tell them exactly what they are doing, or whatever is being practiced, there is a reason behind it. At least now you can start talking about the truth, or just you don't have to scare them. You can just tell them, and maybe that's a good start for the fear to get out of our heads.